Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles. I am delighted to be joined by Rey Tang with her amazing film, Noodles and Incense. Let's take a little clip.
I'm sorry, I'm not who you want me to be. Are you even there right now?
Silly Amy. There's always someone listening.
Rey, I thank you. Thank you for gifting us with this film. I'm so happy that you made this film and brought it to us. But for those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis of your film.
Yeah, and thank you for screening the film. I'm truly so grateful to be here. Yeah, Noodles and Incense is about a young woman from a noodle making family who wants to move west with her girlfriend, but can't because she's sort of conflicted with the spirit of her grandmother and how she passed on without her ever knowing about Amy's, the main character's sexuality. And so it's kind of through these ancient Chinese symbols, noodles, which represent long life, and incense, which is used as a kind of a medium to speak to the those who have passed on. She's able to kind of reconcile with her grandmother and kind of find peace to move on to LA.
It's just so magical the way that you put it together. And you know, from a very different realm, someone that was very close to their grandmother still talks to their grandmother spiritually and never got to speak about their sexuality to their grandmother. I really related to this film and found it so powerful. For you, where did the inspiration come for you in turning this story into a film?
Yeah, totally. I think it came from three different sources, which is one is that with my own personal relationship with my grandmother, who passed on, gosh, I think I want to say like I was a sophomore in high school, so about like 6 years ago now. But she was such an amazing, wonderful woman. You know, she was this teacher in Shanghai who like touched so many lives. And I think for me, I was really hurt by the idea that she would never know me for me, and that I am transgender, I'm a film person, and I think those are two things that are generally not reconcilable in Chinese American culture. And so that was one of my biggest regrets, still is one of the biggest regrets, and you know, nice scarring stuff, but that helped. I think I was able to find kind of some kind of therapy in that I kind of wrote what I hoped my life and my vision would be. And I think secondary was I watched this movie called Your Name, this animation, Japanese anime.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
So
Yeah, I mean the transitions, the pacing. I've watched that movie so many times.
good.
It's amazing. But the way they use cultural symbols as a means of telling story, but also as a means of interlacing, you know, our past and our history, and their time, like playing with time and space. I think those elements kind of spoke to me in a way that I've since been able to kind of synthesize into this film. But we actually, I remember using a lot of the original images in that film as like source imagery for the transcendence sequence when she, you know, is underwater and she's about to transcend to heaven. And so that was really cool because I love Japanese animation. So it was cool to be able to put my passion in there.
I love that you used all these cultural elements and symbolism and like I will never eat noodles the same way again, knowing that it's the length of life. You know, that was such a touching a moment that I didn't know about, and I thought was so beautiful the way that the grandmother was describing, you know, the noodles and the incense and how powerful that was. Like, listen, the way you captured the film was so touching, like this relationship between grandchild and grandparent was just beautiful. It was great. tell us a little bit about how you brought your cast together, because I was in love with the grandma. I just wanted to hug her. She's so great, and her beautiful voice and her teaching was wonderful. Tell us a little about how you brought that together, Ray.
Yeah, 100%. Casting was one of the biggest challenges on this production. So I think it's just to say something about like Asian American talent. I think it's just so difficult when we're in an underrepresented community,
Yeah.
you know, or because the rules weren't there like 20 years ago. And so people who did want to enter the industry were discouraged from that. And, you know, rightfully so, they moved on. But it creates this like perpetuating cycle where it's just like, you know, there's no roles, but there's no one to be cast in those roles. And then it just keeps cycling on and on. And so I think as student filmmakers, especially, you know, because we have limited resources, we're entering in a moment where we're kind of caught in that cycle still. There's not much, we're still not seeing as much representation as we want, especially in the older ages. And I think that really was difficult, especially because we're in Chicago and, you know, it was just, and not as big of a, you know, not like LA where it's a concentrated entertainment industry. That is all to say, casting was ridiculously challenging. I think the grandmother character was the most difficult to cast. Her name is Mani. She is wonderful and such a lively person, and you know she arrived on set with such energy. But we actually found her through a lot of networking. Because honestly, when it comes to like more, I think like roles that you don't traditionally see, it takes a whole community. Like we reached out to a lot of like community centers, we reached out to a lot of so many Facebook groups, but ultimately it was through a family friend who just happened to do theater like once in a while. Like he's actually a psychologist, but he just happens to do theater. Who was like, oh yeah, I know this person, and that's how we cast the mom as well. And we were able to bring that community together. But it was kind of really interesting too, because in the process we were building a community in a weird way. Like you know, we were meeting new people, we were making friends. And that was kind of rewarding in its own front. But yeah, and then ultimately the whole cast came together. And that was really interesting. I remember also for Megan, the role of Megan goes to Candace, who is a wonderful human being. And we actually asked each individual about to like share their stories if they were comfortable, of course, about their queer narratives. And that I think really helped bring in authenticity to this role.
I think so, and this was just, but you know, it was so great with the score and with the voiceover and just with the flashbacks. Like it really was. And you mentioned about, you know, when the underwater scene, like it was powerful, like it was moving, and I was just in it, you know. It was really incredible. What I'm just so curious, like, because I feel like even though this is a personal story, there was a sort of universal morality elements that you kind of did. What did you kind of want your audience to almost take from your film?
Yeah, I think this actually kind of goes back to the previous point of the third inspiration, but I think I'm, as a viewer, very tired of not seeing you know, queer voices, Asian American voices, and female voices on screen. But I'm most upset, I think, about like there's also just so limited coverage of the intersections of that. And I think ultimately I wanted to create a story that was about these identities, but was also something that we could all take from and understand, like there's humanness in that, you know, the guilt of like not being able to like of failing your previous generations and like failing your grandparents. I think that's like I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that's something that at least I find very relatable.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, heavily in the focus. And I think there's something actually, the creator of Pose, I'm blanking on their name, but they were saying that the more specific your narrative is, the more universal the themes are. And so I was drawing like a lot of inspiration from my own past. Like I was also like, my parents sent me to Shanghai for like 9 months because they needed to take care of the financials in the US. And so that was, you know, something that was a lived experience that I thought was like, it's so specific. And I thought that, you know, injecting it would make it a little more like, oh, people would understand the universality of like, you know, financial struggle and the immigrant mentality. And so, yeah, I think those I'm losing track of the question, but I think those were kind of the ideas of like, I really wanted to see somebody like me on screen, and I wanted for
Yes.
that to be normalized finally.
I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because I watched this with my husband and we watched it together. And you know, he is African American, and he watched the relationship of these two beautiful, young, in love human beings. And he reached out to me and said, "This is so beautiful. I have never seen this kind of love on screen before." And just, it was just, you know, and I think exactly to the point you were saying, Ray, this is, you know, again, what is needed, what we need, what the change that is needed, and just how beautiful. And nothing gets normalized unless we actually utilize the platforms and put it out there, and allow wonderful stories like yours to be put on screen. It was moving. And I think on also too, like, this movie can save lives and save family relationships. Like, was that something that you also thought about? Because you know, I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to having some of these troubled conversations and just trying to overcome with their families about sexuality and identity and all of those things. Is that something is also, you know, thinking about too, maybe?
100%, 100%. I think when I was first coming to terms with my own identity, I was hungry for representation. You know, like I would scroll Reddit forums, I would look through YouTube videos. I'd be like, is there anybody out there like me that exists? Like, has anybody been, not to be crude, but has anybody been Asian and been trans? And like, has this been pulled off?
Yes, right.
It's like, you want like proof. And I think representation is so important in that front. I mean, without characters like Hunter Schafer as Jules on Euphoria, Laverne, of course, and Orange is the New Black, I just like, there was no way I would have seen myself in any of these and anybody unless these characters existed. And I think, yeah, 100%. I mean, my dream is to one day write for TV, and I think
you will. You definitely will, Ray. Trust me.
Thank you. That's really sweet. Somebody's about to graduate. I'm freaking out. But yeah, truly, I think somebody who was in my position to be able to see somebody who's made it past, whose parents, like my parents, do accept me for who I am, and like be able to see that kind of future and envision that kind of future and world for themselves. I think that's just something that's so important and core to who I am, because I think as queer individuals, we've all been there. Like we all know how hard it was taking that first step. And so, and how important it was to have those elders, those mentors, those people who you can look up to and think like, this was possible. This was totally possible.
Absolutely. And I think your whole style of how you set the film up, like it really was like we were kind of really experiencing it with her, and that was something magical. And I love all the symbolism and that you created and put together. It's very exciting. So like, what is next for you, Ray? I know you're about to graduate, but like, what is next for you? What's next to you on the horizon? What's next in your imagination? What's the plan?
Yeah, I'm about to graduate Northwestern, which is fun. I think, yeah, thank you. It's weird because we're graduating in a Zoom time, so it feels like I'm just done with online classes. It's pretty crazy. But I think, let's see, I just wrapped my senior thesis, which is about a trans athlete who, it's hard to, I can't even boil it down to a log line. It's about these two characters, and they meet and they sort of want to navigate the world together and are able to come to their own and feel safe with each other through that interaction. It's called Emergence. And so that's in post right now. And I'm also in pre-production for a web series called LDR, Long Distance Relationships, which I'm hoping to film in Chicago in the summertime, which is about a queer relationship that is all in long distance, and the crazy funny lengths they go to try to make it work.
Oh my goodness. I'm sold already. I'm sold, Ray. I'm sold. I can't wait for it all. I just want to finalize on the question, for you as a filmmaker, and maybe for, as you've been speaking about, trying to find people out there that as you were discovering your identity, about who you can look up to and relate to. I'd love to put you in that perspective now and be like, for anyone out there that is inspired by you and want to follow in your footsteps, do you have any advice that you could share as a filmmaker?
Yeah, this is ridiculously cliche, but I kind of live by this, which is work hard, be kind, and live honestly. In that, I don't know, I think working at film is something that, like, I mean, the story always excites me, and it is another cliche. I'm sorry, but it really
No,
does.
this is not done enough, unfortunately, industry. Otherwise, we'll be in a better place in this industry. So I think it's very important to share. Really do.
Yeah. Which is like, well, I mean, working hard is important because you need to show you need to build a skill, because filmmaking is a skill. It's not like a talent that you like come in knowing how to hold the camera. Nobody knows. Everyone works at it. Being kind, I think, is radically important. I mean, being able to be conscientious of your collaborators and how they're feeling, being able to understand the impact of your work and knowing when you're wrong and being able to like understand the hurt that you're causing and being able to own that. I think being kind is ridiculously important. And I think living honestly is something that is a lifelong journey. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I'm only 21. I don't know what living honestly means, but I know that I'm striving towards it. And I hope that, I guess, yeah, that's just ongoing. And I think it's important for art and important for being a better human in general. Yeah.
Ray, you've got, honestly, you do sound like you've been doing this. It's your 35th film that you've just created. So you do not sound like you're just beginning. So, which honestly makes me very excited, and everyone at NewFilmmakers LA really excited for not just what you gave us thus now, but, you know, the journey you're about to embark on, because, you know, you're very deserving and you have a really fantastic storytelling skills and talents. So this is really, really good. But I just want to say thank you for bringing this film to us. I think that this film not only is entertainment, but a great education, understanding, and can build and support families of people that have been in different situations like this. So thank you so much.
Geez, that's really kind. I hope it achieves all those things that you said. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was so great.